And I give you a new commandment. So the old commandment was to love your neighbor as yourself. The new commandment is to love one another, Jesus says, as I have loved you. All right, how did Jesus love us? To the death. Can we do that just by ourselves? No. And so, if Jesus gives us a new commandment, love one another as I have loved you, he's going to give us a means to grow in that. And the Eucharist is the best means. It's not the only one. The first one is holy baptism, confirmation, and confession, all the sacraments, and then prayer, and all of the opportunities for charity makes love grow. But the best means to lead us to grow in charity for one another is receiving the same Jesus in communion. Because he feeds us all with himself, who is love. Right? So the Eucharist is the best way to bring human beings to love one another more closely. But it doesn't work by magic. We wish it did. Right? It doesn't work by magic because of what we said before. Everything is received according to the mode of our hearts, of our receiver, and that is according to our desire. So this is really important in receiving communion. And the communion line, everyone receives the same Jesus, we said, right? We receive the same body and the same blood and the same soul of Jesus. And we receive the same divinity, but not equally. We receive him according to not our perfection, but according to our desire for him. And that means according to our recognition that we need him and that we love him and want to love him so much more than we do right now. And want to love our brothers and sisters more than we can do right now. Right? So why did Jesus institute the Eucharist, the Qurbana? To be present with us everywhere where his church would be throughout these centuries. Right? To be present with us here in Somerset, New Jersey, in St. Louis where I live, in India, in Asia. To make Calvary present here in Somerset, in St. Louis, in New York, in Asia, in Africa. And then to unite himself with us more intimately than husbands and wives are united to themselves, to one another. Right? And so the Eucharist has three mysteries. So what we've just done is we basically asked the question, why did Jesus institute the Eucharist? And the answer is not just one thing. It's three things. He instituted the Eucharist to be with us here in his body. Jesus is in this room in his divinity, right? Because he said, where two or three of you are gathered together, I am there in the midst of you. Right? So he's here in this room. But next door in the church, he's present also in his human body. The same body born in Mary's womb. The same body that was nailed to the cross. The same body that rose on Easter Sunday. And the same body that ascended into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Right? He's here with that body, but veiled. So that's the real presence. So the Eucharist has three mysteries: presence, sacrifice, and communion. And the presence is the first of the three. Without the presence, you wouldn't have the sacrifice or communion. Does that make sense to everyone? If Jesus weren't present on the altar, that's not the same sacrifice of Calvary. That would be bread and wine. On Calvary, there was body and blood of Jesus. Right? And likewise, if Jesus isn't really present, that's not Holy Communion. That's not total self-gift. That's just lunch. Right? And so the real presence is so important, but it's not the end of it, of the Eucharist. It's just the beginning of the Eucharist. Does that make sense? He's here with his body and blood to make us present at Calvary and join in his offering. And then as the fruit of it, to receive him whole and entire. So three mysteries: presence, sacrifice, and communion. And they go in that order. Right? The The presence makes possible the sacrifice, which makes possible Holy Communion. Last thing I want to do before I run out of time is connect the Eucharist with the incarnation. The reason for the Eucharist that we've just talked about, presence, sacrifice, and communion, are the same reasons that God became man in the first place. Right? So if we think about it, why did God become man? Right? Let me throw that out. And we've really answered it, right? God became man because he wanted to wed us. He wanted us to be his bride, and he had divine nature, and we've got human nature. And so God became man to take on what is ours, human nature, flesh, body, being in a place, being a baby, right? Being in the womb, first of all. He shared all of the stages of life of humanity. He lived with his bride, but he also wanted to give us a share of his nature. And we call that grace. That's the mystery of sanctification. And so the Eucharist has the same logic as the incarnation. Let me unfold that a little bit more. Right, so why did God become man? To dwell among us? First reason. Second, to sacrifice himself for us. As God can't sacrifice himself in his divinity. Right? To sacrifice himself for us, he had to take on humanity that could die, right? God, in his divine nature, is immortal and not capable of suffering. So he took on our nature also to die for us, to show us his love for us, and to offer something more pleasing than sin is displeasing. So that's the second. I'm going ahead of myself here. Yeah. So on Calvary, Jesus offered himself as a gift to the Father, more good because of the love that he offered himself than all of sin put together from the beginning of humanity to the end is bad. All right, I can't take that in, right? And I know you can't take that in either, right? We can't even take in the sins of our own life, let alone that of all humanity. But nevertheless, that was Jesus on Calvary offered something more because of the love that he offered himself, and because the life that he was offering was that of God, he offered something more pleasing than sin was displeasing. He found a way to make that present in every Mass.